So they've come from completely being kept outside to working there, and then they're living there. So you start to have the civilization becoming diluted from how it originally was built. People start to forget who they are, and they start to unite under a false banner, an ideological, egalitarian idea that they are all same, they are all one. And they decide to build a tower. They decide to take what was once separated and unite it under their own guise, under their own ideology. So they start to build a tower. And it's a huge tower. They want it to stretch right up to the heavens. And they want it to be a tower of representing their ideology as such. A tower that stretches up to the heavens, that shows them as one people, united, one language, one people, together. So they actually did build this tower. And it was absolutely huge, and it did go up to the sky. And it was their celebration of the modern ideology, which goes back to them times as multiculturalism. It was their celebration, their monument to celebrate that. And the thing to remember with this tower is not only was it a literal tower, it existed, it was built, but the metaphor for that is something we see played out in our lands over and over again every single day. We are told that we are one. We are told that we are nations of immigrants, many people, many tongues, but we shall be together as one. We're all the same. This is exactly what they did and what they were celebrating. So they built this tower up to the heavens to celebrate that, to celebrate everything which was divided, which they decided to take charge of themselves, to unite as one, to put together. And this didn't please God. God had made everything distinct and separate, kind after kind, for a reason. And the Bible will tell you what happened here, so I'm going to read from there. This is Genesis 11. Now the whole earth had one language and one speech. And it came to pass, as they were journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to one another, Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city, and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. But the Lord came down to see the city, and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, Indeed the people are one, and they all have one language, and this is what they begin to do. Now nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. And in this example, you not have only the literal building of the tower, you have the metaphor for what we see in all of our lands. People uniting as one. Nobody's separate or distinct. There is no kind after kind. There is no separate race of peoples. Everybody exists just the same. But the Lord scattered this apart. He destroyed this tower that they built. But the ideology that stems back then, thousands of years ago, is prevalent now in all of our lands, and this is what we're told every single day.
The Jewish Religion, Its Influence Today, by Elizabeth Dilling. Chapter 14, Prophecy and the Developing Antichrist World Government. To casual Christians, the logical evolution of Christianity should mean that things would get better and better with everyone living in a happy and trouble-free world. To them, present world events are a puzzle. However, this comfortable view ignores Holy Scripture and its biblical prophecies, most of which have been completely fulfilled already. These prophecies remaining to be carried out, however, envision an Antichrist world government, with world turmoil, suffering, slavery, and woe never before experienced in all of history. But, at the end, Christ is the victor, and the satanic forces will be completely destroyed. The driving force of this growing world Antichrist force is Babylonian Talmudism, or so-called Judaism, and its adherents and followers. Title: The Antichrist. The Pharisee synagogue of Satan will have a world head as foretold by Daniel the prophet, found in Matthew 24:15, Mark 13:14, Daniel 7:25, Daniel 8:23-5, Daniel 9:27, Daniel 11:31-39, and 45. Also found in 2 Thessalonians 2:1-9. In the last biblical reference, wherein Paul is telling us that the Antichrist must become and be demolished before Christ's reign here on earth, the Antichrist is ascribed as the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This is 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4. Indeed, the Talmud holds up the rabbis' anti-Christian forerunners of the Antichrist as above all the prophets, and even able to create a calf and eat it. Quote from Exhibit 72, "Rabbah created a man," is the claim of the Talmud, and the Sanhedrin 65b. The myth that rabbis created golem, or zombie men they could make do their bidding, is cherished and repeated in each century as Baal Shem Jewish doctrine. Take Matthew 24 or Mark 13, in which Christ foretells the present age. Luke 21 is also a report of his Olivet Discourse. The wars of nation against nation begin the final sorrows, found in Matthew 24, 7-8. The persecution of Christians in all nations follows. Then comes the falling away or apostasy of Christians, which Paul describes as the sign of the finish in 2 Thessalonians 2. And this is also noted by Christ in the verse 12 of Matthew chapter 24. Then is the sign of the cleanup, when the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet shall stand in the holy place. Title: The Jerusalem Temple Rebuilding. The holy place always refers to the Jerusalem temple, but there has been no temple for an Antichrist to stand in since, as Christ foretold at the very beginning of his discourse in Matthew 24:2. The temple would be left without one stone upon another, not thrown down. Titus dragged a plow over Jerusalem in 70 A.D. In 1958, however, a new Hetel Shlomo, or temple, on the highest hill in Jerusalem was dedicated. $2 of the $3 million cost was donated by a British chain store operator, Isaac Wolfson. The building of this temple had been pledged by a delegation from 550 Orthodox synagogues in the USA, which visited Israel. It is a world center of Judaism. Rabbis of the whole world are expected to receive their orders from this temple establishment. Perhaps this very temple will be the future place where the abomination of desolation foretold by Daniel in chapters 11 and verse 31 is to take place. Title: Now comes the United Nations. There has been no one world power since the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, Constantinople, fell to the Turks in 1453, 1,000 years after Rome fell to Attila the Hun in 453. Now the machinery for a seventh anti-God world government has been set up by the Babylonian Talmudists in the form of the United Nations. The American Jewish yearbooks, put out yearly by the world czars of money, industrial and political power, encompassing the Rothschilds, Lazard Freres, Lehmans, Kuhn Loebs, international bankers, in short, by the American Jewish Committee, have chronicled each and every step in their accomplishment, the creation of this vehicle for world power. And this following less than 30 years after the Red takeover of Christian Russia was financed by Kuhn and Loeb Company and other Jewish banking houses, as is detailed elsewhere herein. The United Nations, of over 100 nations, centered in New York City, is a godless, prayerless assemblage. Its only religious emblem, in Babylonian style, is the nude, lewd statue of the sex god Zeus, counterpart of Tammuz, Adonis, and others in ancient times. He stands unspeakably modeled, arms outstretched, commanding the great entrance hall of the United Nations. When the Greeks conquered the world, they spread the propaganda that their sex god Zeus, who had, according to legend, raped his mother and his sister, was also the progenitor and unifier of all the sex gods of the Greek world. For the United Nations, Zeus can only represent unity in abomination and lust. Title: The Developing Babylonian World Government. In the Bible, the very word Babylon is used to symbolize everything foul and pagan. It is agreed by various commentaries that the curses upon Babylon in Isaiah 13:14 and Jeremiah 50:51 refer not merely to the Babylonian Empire of ancient times, but to the future world government to end this age. Christ, in his revelation from the Spirit to John about 96 AD, said, quote, "There are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is in power, and the other is not yet to come, and goeth into perdition," found in Revelation 17:10. 5 world kingdoms had then come and gone: Egypt, Assyria, Babylonia, Medo-Persia, Greece. Rome then was in power over the whole known world. Christ describes the coming world government as red or scarlet colored, as a behind-the-scenes or mystery power, and calls it Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of martyrs of Jesus. Its scope is likened to a beast with 10 horns, which are 10 kings that will reign very briefly, 1 hour. The harlot reigneth over the kings of the earth, found in Revelation 17, for the complete control of trade and industry by her merchants, found in Revelation 18:11. The excoriations against Babylon by Jesus, Christ from the Spirit about 96 AD, over 600 years after the fall of actual Babylon, had necessarily to refer to a future world government controlled by a whore-like Babylonian-minded anti-God, Antichrist regime to come, not a long-gone Babylonian empire. The 10 component parts of this world government which make war on the Lamb, as chronicled in Revelation 17:12-14, as well as the prophecy of the satanic Antichrist, correspond with the prophecy of Daniel the prophet of the same 10-king anti-God power found in Daniel 7:24. But its complete defeat is as foretold in both places. See how similarly Jeremiah and Christ have described the final events. Jeremiah ends his long denunciation in chapter 51, thus, quote, "And it shall be, when thou hast made an end reading of this book, that thou shalt bind a stone to it, and cast it into the midst of the Euphrates, and thou shalt say, Thus shall Babylon sink, and shall not rise from the evil that I will bring upon her." Thus far are the words of Jeremiah, found in Jeremiah 51:63-4. And Christ, after prophesying the fall of the red Antichrist Babylonian world power run by rich men, says, quote, "And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall the great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. Thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived." End quote. Then the last verse of the Babylonian harlot, quote, "And in her were the found blood of prophets and of saints, and of all that were slain upon the earth." Revelation 18:24. In Matthew 23, when Christ was facing the Pharisee eye to eye and calling them hypocrites again and again, he said, quote, "Ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers. Ye serpents, How can ye escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets, and wise men and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous bloodshed upon the earth, from the blood of Abel. Matthew 23:31-35. Thus did Christ link the Pharisees of his time with the rulers of the Babylonian red world power to come and to be sunken like a stone deep in the water. Isaiah in 712 BC foretold the fall of the Babylonian world power, still in the future, in the same words as Christ did at the end of the first century. The Babylonian wicked woman, directress of it, is to fall, quote, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments, in Isaiah 47:9 and Revelation 18:7. Moses commanded, quote, there shall not be found among you anyone that useth divination, or an observer of times, referring to astrology, or an enchanter of a witch, Deuteronomy 18:10. And those black arts are denounced throughout Scripture. They may evoke power, but only cursed power. Title: Isaiah on the Antichrist. For a perfect description of the Antichrist, we have Isaiah's picture in Isaiah 14:12-17. This is a description of the fall of the Babylonian world power at the end of this age, the end of the seventh world government we now see coming about. Quote, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cast down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners? End quote. That last reminds one of the vast concentration camps housing millions of innocent people under communism. Isaiah continues in Isaiah 14:12-21, quote, prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of the hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord. End quote. No wonder the Babylonian Talmudists call this fictitious, that this did not apply to the transfer of the ancient Babylonian kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar to Cyrus, the Medo-Persian, which took place in 536 BC, is shown by the fact that Cyrus did not destroy a stone of the great capital of Babylon, making it gorgeous palace his winter residence. The same prophecies as to future occurrences were made not only by Jeremiah and Daniel, but by Christ in his revelation in 96 AD, where the fall of the then non-existent world government of Babylon, linked to the Pharisees, climaxes in the 17th and 18th chapters. See Daniel 11:45, Revelation 17:10-11, 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4. Compare Jeremiah 51:7-8 with the still future revelation of Christ in the first century. Revelation 17:3-5, calling the seventh world government directed by a Babylonian whore, also its fall like a stone. Jeremiah 51:63-4 and Revelation 18:21. That fall was still future when Christ, in 96 AD, foretold its fall in Revelation 17. It, quote, goeth into predation. The sixth or Roman world government was then in power. Compare the prophecy of the fall of this demon-employing power in Jeremiah 51. And Babylon shall become heaps, a dwelling place for dragons. Babylon hath been a golden cup, that made the earth drunken. Therefore the nations are mad. in Jeremiah 51:37 and 7. Such worldwide events await us, and in Christ's revelation of this future fall, quote from Revelation 17:1-5, the great whore was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, having a golden cup in her hand, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. End quote. Title: The Jewish Messianic Reign. Although some Jews look for an individual warlord who will help place Jewry on the throne of the world, the actual view of Judaism is that the Jewish people themselves comprise the Messiah, and their right is to be collectively the Messianic reign, actually foretold for Christ, not the Jews, in the Bible. The tribulation foretold to precede the reign of Christ, in which Satanism strives to subdue the world, is scoffed at by the Talmud and called fictitious. Babylonian power will not fall, they say. Babylon will be immune from suffering, according to Talmudism, despite biblical prophecies to the contrary. Quote, we have a tradition that Babylon, will not witness the sufferings that will precede the coming of the Messiah. End quote. After sufferings in the foregoing is the note that the sufferings frequent in modern Christian books is fictitious, found in the Talmud of Kethaboth 3a. Any tribulation will be but the throes of Mother Zion, which is in labor to bring forth the Messiah, without metaphor, the Jewish people, found in Kethaboth 3a. In other words, to call the Jewish people the Messiah is no metaphor. They are literally just that. They are the Messiah, says the Talmud. A Talmud passage in Sanhedrin 98b records exulting words of the Pharisee rabbis. Quote, the Jews are destined to eat their fill in the days of Messiah. End quote. The footnote in Exhibit 100 states that the Israelites, having fallen, were replaced in power by the Gentiles, but on their recovery, it will be difficult to remove the Gentiles from their position without inflicting much suffering. From Exhibit 100, the years of plenty which the Messiah will usher in will be enjoyed by the Israelites. End quote. Bear in mind always that the pagan Babylonian Talmudists have stolen the biblical names for the followers of the Holy One of Israel, who believe in him, and in the Israel prophets who foretold him. Biblically, as noted elsewhere herein, the genealogically nondescript, self-styled Jews are actually Gentiles, and Christians are spiritually Israel. The congregation of Israel was never a racial entity, any more than Catholicism or Protestantism. The Bible testifies to that. All blessings promised Christians are attempted to be stolen by the Talmudists. However, those who love and try to follow the Holy One of Israel, Christ, are the true congregation of Israel, into which anyone of right spirit may enter. Many sincere Christians, ignorant of the facts, believe present-day Jews to be people of the book, returning as chosen of God to their Israel homeland. This is totally false. In fact, the whole theory that God's chosen people return to Palestine before the reign of the Messiah is unsupported by a line in the New Testament, which foretells only that the Antichrist forces will be centered in and defeated in Palestine before his coming. They are there now. Title: More about the Jewish Messianic Era. A typical Talmud cover-up passage reads, quote, a min, or Christian, said to Rabbi Abuhu, when will the Messiah come? He replied, when darkness covers those people. Alluding to the questionnaire and his companions, you curse me, he exclaimed. Concerning the darkness, quote, the cock said to the bat, I look forward to the light, because I have sight, but of what use is the light to thee? And all this is explained, quote, found in Exhibit 101, thus Israel should hope for redemption, because it will be a day of light to them. But why should the Gentiles, seeing that for them it will be the day of darkness?" End quote. The Talmud outlines the place to be given to the non-Pharisees, called Canaanites, in this messianic world of the future. Those Jews buried in Israel will be resurrected, and the non-Pharisees will have their place as, quote, "as the people that are like an ass, slaves who are considered property of the master," end quote. The biblical verse about Abraham going up to pray and telling his young men to "abide ye here with the ass," as he would return to them in Genesis 22:5, is dragged in for the purpose of saying that the correct interpretation of this verse is that non-Jews are people that are like an ass, slaves who are considered the property of the master, end quote. Title: Chad Gadya. That Passover song, Chad Gadya, the only kid, heralds the day after one nation has devoured another, in accordance to Daniel's prophecies found in Daniel 7:23, when only the Talmudist, or self-styled Israel, is left. It ends, "The most holy, blessed be he, destroyed the angel of death, that slew the slaughter, that killed the ox, that drank the water, that quenched the fire, that burned the stick, that beat the dog, that bit the cat, that ate the kid, which my father bought for 2 zuzim." End quote. Chad Gadya is the only kid, namely the Talmudist. The Jewish Encyclopedia is more veiled about its true meaning than is a book by Rabbi Morris S. Lazaron called "Ask the Rabbi, 2,000 Questions and Answers About the Jew." One question on page 23, answered on page 141, is, what is the sequence in the song "The Only Kid" supposed to symbolize? Answer: the rise and fall of great nations, each of whom destroys another until only Israel is left. And this exactly matches Daniel's prophetic description of the seventh world government, the fourth to come after Nebuchadnezzar's, namely Medo-Persian, Greek, Roman, and Red, quote, "the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces," end quote, from Daniel 7:23. Title: Babylon and Israel. Babylon is spiritual head. Israel is the future place of messianic world rule envisioned by Jews. Jews have actually gone to die in Israel to save themselves the pain of rolling through cavities to get to Israel when their rule comes. However, Pharisaic brotherhood and aesthetic communism in a world having no nationalism except Pharisaism is built on Satan's, not God's, plan. The final world despot, Antichrist, will fall, as the prophet Micah, 710 BC, foretold of the future kingdom of Christ on earth. Quote, "They shall sit every man under his vine, and under his fig tree, and none shall make him afraid," end quote, from Micah 4:4. No more prison-like collectives, no more killing, slavery, and suffering, as is already the case in Talmudist-dominated communist countries. Title: Christ's Identification Marks. That we are in the seventh, the red, the Antichrist world government is clear. Christ in his revelation foretold the rationing feature of its totalitarianism in Revelation 13:16 through 17. He said that the number of the Antichrist's name would add up to 666. Gematria is a code system of Pharisaism, which is in use today as in Christ's time. The scale of letter values is printed in Kabbalistic works. The Antichrist world dictator to come will let no man buy or sell save he that has the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name, found in Revelation 13:18. In wartime and in the Iron Curtain countries, dictatorship by rationing is already practiced, and thus foreshadows the above. The Christ calls this world government scarlet-colored, or red, as we say. Israel is a home of the red flag. Articles in the Jewish press have deplored this flamboyant way the red flag is flown on Red May Day. No wonder. The ruling party, Mapai, is a section of the Second International Marxist Red Parties. Its official songs, printed in my Roosevelt Red record and its background, as reproduced from the Socialist song sheet, include the red flag and the Soviet International, with its Antichrist words, quote, "We want no condescending saviors to judge us from a judgment hall. We workers ask not for their favors, let us consult for all. 'Tis the final conflict, let each stand in this place. The International Soviet shall be the human race." End quote. This is sung with upraised clenched fist. The Israel Mapam is a party Marxist like Mapai, and even more pro-Soviet and pro-Russian. The other parties are Marxian splinter parties. The great Histadrut, which received millions of dollars from American unions, etc., is run on Soviet lines. Industries, banks, bus lines, collective farms are owned in Soviet socialist fashion. One Jewish writer described the Israeli collective farms, the kibbutzim, as more Soviet than Russian ones, called kolhozes. That Jewish messianic feeling has endangered false confidence. The fall of this Babylonian Talmudic world power, now building with increasing rapidity, is foretold not only by Christ in Jeremiah 51, Isaiah 13 and 14, are samples of Old Testament prophecy of the same fate, which is complete annihilation. Daniel said, "The Antichrist would magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods. In his estate shall he honor the God of forces. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him." Found in Daniel 11:36, 38, and 45. In the meantime, we must do our part. The Red Babylonian Seventh World Government will come down, Christ said, quote, "by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, who, quote, love not their lives unto the death," end quote, from Revelation 12:11. For, quote, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free," in John 8:32. Those in these times, quote, "that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits," end quote, said Daniel, "and shall instruct many, and, quote, shine as the stars forever," found in Daniel 11:32-3 and 12:2. May you be prepared to help overcome, by the word of your testimony, the onslaught we now see of world satanic forces, and, quote, shine as the stars forever, end quote. And that does it for chapter 14 of The Jewish Religion, Its Influence Today by Elizabeth Dilling. And that does it for the entire book. That was the last chapter. I wanted to make this audio version of the book in hopes of shedding more light on this information. This information reveals much about the Abrahamic faiths that Christians aren't as aware of, particularly Talmudism. Talmudism is something I was not aware of until 2 or 3 years ago. And I've been a Christian on and off in my life, and I'm now a Christian, but most Christians who grew up Christian don't know about Talmudism and Judaism and the absolute diabolical evil associated with it. Unfortunately, many Christians have the exact opposite assumptions about Judaism, that since it is also Abrahamic in nature, that it is a kind of teammate for them, and that, we mostly agree on most things, so therefore you guys are an asset. And it's just not the case. It's not the case at all. People that subscribe to Talmudism, who are mostly Jewish, would like nothing more than to see Christians suffering, to see them dead, to see them as slaves under their boots. And Christians don't understand this. And it's the greatest weakness that Christians have. So this is essentially my effort to try and get Christians to see that these people are not your friends. These people are your enemy. So if you have made it this far, share this link around that I have in the description. It's the script I'm reading off of. Her books are available on the Wayback Machine. You can find it there. And then some people don't like to read, so I made an audio version of it. I don't think I've come across one other audio version, but they only got like 4 chapters in. They didn't do the whole thing. I'm sure there's another one out there, but I haven't seen it. So this is my attempt to try and wake some Christians up to who their opposition really is. And really, these people are oppositioners of the entire world, if you believe what Elizabeth has been saying about these people. These people want to communize the entire world. They want to make the entire world their slaves through diversification, through Marxism, through all these different kinds of evil methodologies. So, again, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.